Hey, this is Roy Crumrine with the Welding Tips and Tricks podcast. For this week's Stubby episode, Jody Collier is reading a question that we get all the time about gas flow settings for TIG welding. I'd like to take a moment and thank CK Worldwide for sponsoring this Stubby episode. Be sure to check out ckworldwide.com to see the standard for all of your TIG welding needs. Now here's Jody.
I added a kit to my store that has all kinds of different cup sizes, all the way down to the number 5 standard collet body for aluminum, all the Furic cups, the CK Worldwide large diameter gas lens cups, and a whole lot more. And so I got a question: did I have a chart with the flow rates for all these different size cups? I don't have a chart like that yet. However, I'm going to work on that. But meanwhile, there is a number that will get you right in the sweet spot for almost every cup. And that number is 2.2 times the inside diameter of the cup in 16ths. Cups are sized here in the USA anyway in 16ths. So a number 10 cup would be 10/16. A number 5 cup would be 5/16. So if you multiply the number of the cup times 2.2, you get a really good number, really good starting point. For example, the number 10 cup times 2.2 CFH will give you 22 CFH. You'll be right in the pocket. You can often get by with a lot less, you can often get by with a lot more, but that number is usually a really good starting point. And so speaking of starting point, your number one starting point will be knowing what your flow meter is delivering, and the only real way to do that is to have a little gas flow tester. They sell these on ArcZone. They're a very simple little device. It's got a tube, much like the tube in a flow meter, that's got increments on it. And it's got a rubber, sort of like a funnel, that you would put your nozzle on, and you hold it straight up and down and press your pedal and get the flow going, and then you can verify what's coming out of your flow meter. Flow meters are not all created equal. Some of them can be really off a lot. I've had some that are wildly inaccurate over the years. It really does help to know what your flow meter is delivering. Another thing to think about is how long is your stick out. That affects the flow rate that you need. A shorter stick out, you can get by with less flow. A longer stick out might require more CFH. Speaking of CFH, I'm in the USA, and that's pretty much what we deal with. But with so many import welders out there, a lot of them come with flow meters out of the box that are labeled in LPM, liters per minute, instead of cubic feet per hour. That's what you have. You don't really have to get a new flow meter. Just know that you have to make a quick conversion. And that number is pretty easy because it's not exact, but it's basically a 2-to-1 factor. So if you have 10 LPM, that is equivalent to about 20 CFH. Not exact. Actually, it's more like just a little over 21 CFH. Close enough, though. Other factors are pretty obvious to some, maybe not so obvious to others. You know, how much breeze is there in the area that you're welding? If you're welding in a perfect scenario, in your garage or in a nice shop, their doors aren't opening and closing, there's no vents over you, the air is still, you're going to be able to get by with a little bit less flow rate. If there's breezes, if you're under a vent, if there's an open door, if you're outside or there are breezes, you're probably going to need a little bit higher flow rate. And if you're outdoors and there's a lot of breeze, you may not be able to overcome that with flow rate alone. You may have to come up with some wind stops, some cardboard, or put up some blinds or a little tent or something like that. The metal you're welding also has a bearing on the flow rate, and what I'm thinking about when I say that is mainly aluminum. Aluminum seems to have a tighter range, especially on the high range, for the amount of flow that you can weld with before the arc just gets erratic. If you ever welded aluminum and just had the arc be so noisy it's just rattling your brains, a lot of times if you'll turn down the CFH to a point where you're still getting shielding, but you can hear that arc quiet down quite a bit just by reducing the flow rate. You don't want to reduce it more than you need to. You don't want to get a scummy puddle. But as long as you have a nice, clean, shiny puddle on aluminum, higher flow rates usually just give you a louder arc and an erratic arc and does more harm than good. Stainless is a whole different thing because you might want to be up at the higher range with a gas lens on stainless because you get that little bit of an added benefit of blowing cold argon on that part, cooling it down just a little bit. Well, okay, let's wrap this up. You don't really need a chart for flow rates on all the different cup sizes. just use the factor 2.2 multiplied times the cup size. It'll give you a really good starting point. A little bit less for a really short stick out, a little bit more for a longer stick out. And of course, there are always extenuating circumstances that'll make you have to change this. I hope this helps. See you next time.
Well, there you go. That's it for this week's Stubby episode. I know I picked up a few pretty good tips from Jody on that one. Hopefully you did too. I'd like to once again thank CK Worldwide for sponsoring this Stubby episode. And again, please be sure to head over to ckworldwide.com to check out the standard for all of your TIG welding needs. If you have a question that you'd like to hear answered here on a Stubby episode, be sure to send them to weldingtipsandtrickspodcast@gmail.com so that we can add it to the queue and get it answered for you. Until next time, have a great one.